Welcome to the Chicago Money Show. We help you bring more money, more meaning, and more happiness into your life. I'm your host, Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I own a family financial planning practice in Chicago. Our guest today is Renate Martin, a top Chicago realtor for over 20 years. Renate, why don't you tell us more about yourself?
Well, my name's pronounced Renate.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll try again.
It should have a little asterisk over the E, but nobody does it in America, so I feel like I'm being, kind of, I don't know. Anyway.
You tell people all the time, right?
But it's okay. Don't worry about it. So I started in real estate in 2001, and when I started, I was working at Museum Park. It was a new construction, one of the largest new construction complexes in the city at the time. I worked there for about 3 years, and then after that I started doing resale, and then I was kind of doing that full time, and occasionally as new construction came available, I would do new construction. So I have a real mix of experience. I have investors, I have first-time buyers, I have new construction experience, and I have resale experience.
Interesting. Okay, so on today's show, we're going to talk about the real estate market now, how to approach buying and selling a house, and what long-term trends you see in the market. So you told me that even 1 month can make a big difference in the Chicago real estate market. So why don't you expand on that?
So if you recall last year, there were a lot of properties that were getting multiple bids, because everything at the beginning of last year, everything was kind of insane and you were getting a lot of multiple bids. And then by June, when the interest rates went up, it completely slowed down. So by September, it was pretty much not much was going on. Very little was going on. So when I say quickly, I had a client who had a property in the suburbs. And the suburbs in the last few years have been doing really well. Things have been moving quickly. And then she put her property on in May, and literally we could tell the difference from May to June.
Oh.
And so to this, we took her property off. We were supposed to put it back on this year. And I keep calling her and going, "You're going to miss the market again. You're going to miss the market again." And she's like, "Oh, I know, but I'm not ready." So I tell people sometimes maybe if you're not ready, but if you need to sell, you just need to get ready to sell.
Right. So you're saying it's kind of picking up again, or you're expecting to pick up?
So it is picking up because we're in the spring market.
Okay.
But it's not a strong, it's not one, like the luxury market is struggling now.
Okay.
So the market that is happening now is pretty much between $300,000 and $500,000. That's what's moving.
Okay.
I did have a condo recently that had multiple offers. I sold it in a week. I had an open house. I had a ton of people come through.
Okay.
But then I also have a multi-unit that I thought would sell pretty quickly, and that's taking a little time.
Okay.
But that's more expensive.
Right.
The condo was in a more affordable price. The multi-unit is a little bit more money, so it takes a little bit longer to get people to adjust to that.
Right.
Especially with the higher interest rates.
Right, exactly. So the multi-unit, they're putting it through their profit and loss statement and trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so we started talking about interest rates. So tell me more about how you tell people to approach the interest rates.
Well, I pretty much tell them to, you know what, you don't have to keep this interest rate. So if you need to move, or if you need to sell, you should do it now. Well, not selling because it doesn't affect you as much unless you're moving somewhere else. But if you need to buy, you might have to take on a higher interest rate, and maybe you need to adjust what you're looking at. Instead of a 2-bedroom, maybe you could consider a 1-bedroom. If you don't want to do that, and you have the money and you can move forward at your 2-bedroom, go ahead and do that, and realize that the interest rates are going to lower. They're going to get lower at some point.
Right.
And then you can refinance.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great point. And so then if your interest rate is higher, you kind of have to keep one eye out every so often, like, well, every 6 months or once a year.
Right.
And just say, okay, have interest rates gone down? What does my statement say? Oh yeah, that's right. This is my interest rate. Because I found that people don't remember that, which is fine. I mean, some people, it's like, I pay blah, blah, blah.
Because I got a 3% interest rate.
Yeah, I got 2.875. So I'm like, remember.
Not going anywhere. Yeah, right.
But most people,
Right.
I mean, we ask people, this is a question we ask people all the time. So I know people are not quite certain about what it is.
Right, right.
And so they can be, people's memory can be vague about it, but then if they're taking the strategy of like, I'm just going to buy, I'm ready to buy, I'm buying, and then refinancing, which is a great strategy.
Right.
Just look at it, and quick tip is I usually, the numbers when we work them out, usually if the rate's gone down by a half a percentage point or more, it makes sense to refi. Like you have to look at the numbers individually, but that's what we usually find.
But I do think that you should be careful about keep refining, because my mother, she owned a home that she left me, but she kept refinancing as the interest rates kept going lower and lower, which she would have paid off her home if she hadn't kept
think about that.
refinancing. Yeah.
So think about your how long the more. If your goal is to pay off the home, then think about like, okay, am I always going back to 30 years?
Right.
Okay, great. Next question. One question I hear a lot is, when is the real estate market going to crash again?
So, that's going to be a little bit of a problem to predict.
Yeah.
Because we're in a low inventory market right now.
Oh.
So the prices aren't really going down. They're kind of staying steady. Now, of course, this always depends on area, condition of property, what kind of property are you getting? Are you buying a condo? Are you buying a multi-unit? Are you buying a single family? So that all can change depending on your product. But, it's really like right now you would have thought that prices would have started going down because the interest rates are going high and it's putting pressure on the market, but there's just not enough homes out there.
Right.
And we haven't been building since the Great Recession. So until we start building more homes and the interest rates get lower, I really don't know if that's going to happen. They keep saying there's going to be a recession, which I believe there's usually a recession like every 10 years or so. And I think we are due for one, but we don't seem to have it.
Yeah.
So I can't predict that, and it's a real iffy. I've been doing this for 22 years, and I've just usually, like, I didn't see the Great Recession coming, but I saw issues happening early on.
Right.
And I remember in 2006, I was actually on another new development, and I just kept looking at the prices that we had, and I was like, nobody's going to buy this.
Yeah.
And then the next thing was 2007, and we were sitting on these prices and we weren't moving. I was like, we need to lower our prices. And then it was 2008, and that's when the market started going down. But in 2006, there was pressures that were showing, but then there were areas where they were just going blockbuster.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's hard to tell.
I saw it again in the real estate market. I had a tax practice at the time, and so I was working with somebody who was developing properties, and I was like, wait a minute, this is just like a shell game, or like musical chairs, right? What we used to play when we were kids. And sooner or later, the chair's not going to be there.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to just like finance everything by your sales of the thing that's still under construction.
Exactly.
So I actually just stopped taking those construction clients like way early. So that's one of the things, though, is it's very difficult to time. So I did that in like 2002, and then the market crashed in like 2008.
Right.
So it's like, sure, I can predict that it might happen, but I don't know when.
Right.
And these days, it seems like there's more guardrails in place with the banks and their lending, and that's one of the reasons why the interest rates are going up.
True.
They can't do the same things that they were doing before.
Correct. But then look at the banks that in California.
Yeah, good point.
So, they were a specialty bank that, the interest rates affected, and now they're in trouble.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So you just, I just don't like to predict in this business.
Great. Okay, so if you're interested in buying or selling now, how long should you expect the process to take?
Well, it's going to depend. So if you're going to come in and you know what you want and you know where you want to live, it can take it takes, usually I say it takes 30 to 45 days with a loan. If you have a loan. But if you have cash, you can do that in like 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. So it just depends. But if you're starting out and you're like, I don't know what I want to buy, I don't know where I want to live, it's going to take a little bit longer.
Okay.
So a lot of times when people come to me, I always tell people, come to the realtor before you've made up your mind on a few things, because we can help guide you.
Right.
And I always like people to go to my lenders, because a lot of times people now are shopping online for lenders, and I don't know who these lenders are. And this is your big purchase. I don't want you to make a purchase and you get to the closing table and that lender can't close that loan.
Right.
My lenders I've worked with for years, they're going to tell me if there's issues. We're going to be prepared for what's happening.
Yeah, I experienced that myself. It's like the lenders online can say it can sound great.
It can sound
and
great.
then it can fall apart really fast. Because, and in my situation, it's like it just ends up to be kind of complicated, like with businesses, you know. And
Right,
so,
because you're self-employed.
yeah, I'm self-employed. And so not everybody,
Understands
not every
it.
lender, that takes a higher level of sophistication amongst the lenders.
Yeah.
And so it's not like buying other products where online's great. you
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've had some success with online lenders, which I was like, yay. But then I've seen some like real shady people, and
Right.
I'm like, please don't use these people, because you're putting money down, earnest money. You're making, that's at risk.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Okay, and so what features do you see that are kind of hot right now? Anything that people are like, oh yes, I'm interested in this?
Well, the hottest thing right now is everybody likes this gray, white, beigey color scheme that I'm just waiting for it to go away. Like, yeah, it's gonna go away soon. I'm just like, okay, how about blue?
Right. Take a risk. Yeah.
But most things that people want are like things like central air. They want like parking. Now that's starting to happen less because you're getting the younger kids that just want to be near public transportation.
Okay.
And they don't necessarily want a car.
Okay.
So like this is the first time in a few years where I've had more than one buyer that's like, I don't really need parking. And I'm like, yeah, but for resale, you might want to consider that.
Right.
You know, you can always rent out that space if you don't have a car.
Right.
Especially if it's a deeded space. So parking, in-unit washer and dryer. People want hardwood floors.
Okay, that's interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
they prefer hardwood floors than
It seems like
carpeting.
that should have gone. Like that's been around. That's been the thing for a long time.
Well,
like, I'm not quite sure.
You mean hardwood floors?
Hardwood floors. Are they going to stay forever? Or is that going to be?
No,
just
because
the way it is?
carpeting is kind of something that holds allergies.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If you have
So is it
hair,
that?
so
Yeah.
people aren't attracted to it because of they might have. If you had
Allergies.
a cat before,
Right.
They don't want the carpet.
Allergies with a dog.
Right,
or
right,
whatever.
right. So
Yeah,
I think
it's easier to
hardwood
clean.
floors or, newer kind of, there's now those like mixed floors that people like
Right.
to use that look like hardwood, but they're really ceramic and they're easy to
Or they're
maintain.
vinyl if
Or
it's
they're
downstairs.
vinyl, right,
Yeah,
right.
right.
They'll do things like that. But yeah, hardwood is
And it gives it a nice feel too.
and it's a warm.
warm.
It's
Yeah.
warm. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think hardwood is going to stick around.
Okay, great.
I do.
Okay, great. So we're going to take a break now. Stay tuned for more of the Chicago Money Show with our guest, Renate. You have to say your name.
Renate.
Renate Martin. Okay, great.
Do you want to know what makes Chicago great at 8? It's me. It's Cooking with Tittle. Bon appetit, let's eat. For more than 20 years, Cooking with Tittle has brought you sizzling eats and titillating treats that you can't beat anywhere else. So tune in to CAN TV 19 this week and every week for Cooking with Tittle and more amazing, unique, and homegrown Chicago programs.
We're here with Chicago realtor Renate Martin. Okay, buying a house. So let's say you're talking to a person. What do you tell them to think about before they buy a house? Like, how do you tell them to approach it?
Well, so first of all, I tell them to go to the lender and I say, don't ask them how much you can afford, because that was what happened during the Great Recession.
Right.
Everybody would come back from the lender and be like, oh my God, I can afford like $500,000.
Yeah.
Okay, please don't do that.
Yeah.
So look at your monthly expenses and figure out what you're comfortable spending a month, and then say to the lender, let's go backwards from there. I also tell people it's a good idea to have a little, a cushion of money in case something goes wrong, or in case you lose your job and you need to get through. You should have 6 months worth of savings anyway.
Right.
But you might want to have a little bit more just because you now are maintaining a home. A condo is going to be a little bit less expensive because the only thing you're going to be maintaining is the stuff inside your unit. But if you have a single family or a multi-unit, then you're in charge of everything.
Right.
So I just try to tell people, be aware that things happen. I also encourage home warranties for people because then, I'm, like I was telling you earlier, I'm feast or famine. I make a lot of money and then sometimes it's really slow and then I don't. So I have a home, and I'm always like trying to figure out, oh, well, if something goes bad when it's slow, I want to make sure it gets repaired and replaced in a timely manner. So that's why I keep a home warranty.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I want to talk about this a little bit, because when I'm talking with people, I want to talk about money, meaning, and happiness, right? And so a home can be a big part of your feeling of meaning and happiness in your life. And so the things that I tell people is, first, think about your values. So if you value, say, the environment or getting outside, well, make sure you live by the nature source of it. The closer you live to the nature source
That
of
makes
your
you happy,
choice
yep.
is better. So if that's the lake, if that's the river, if that's, you know, a suburban thing that's got a trail next to it, that's great. But that's not going to resonate as much with somebody else who doesn't care about that as much. If they care about cultural things, then be close to those things.
Right.
Or closer.
Right.
Another point I like to make is, if you, for instance, value creativity, then when you're looking at spaces, think, how is this going to play out? Is there a big basement downstairs where I can practice my guitar? Or is there like a little room where I could do my painting? Or etc. Because that goes from having a house that you like to having a house that you love.
This is true.
Like when it resonates with your values.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I say is, be careful about commutes. Because the actual researchers who study this, when they ask people what makes them happy, commute makes people unhappy. And so if you can lower your commute, that actually makes people happier. So those are the things that I
But
talk
you
about.
can't buy a home based on your commute, because what if you have a new job
if it changed?
and and then that commute changes? And now we're in the post-COVID world, where a lot of people are now starting to work from home. I used to always go into my office. Now I'm just like, I'm staying home. You know, I go in my office when I need to, but I have now created an office at home.
Right, exactly.
So, you know, I mean, I also want people to keep things like that in mind, because a lot of times when you're a first-time buyer, you can't afford your ideal dream home. So I have to get people to work up to, this is your first purchase. This isn't your last. And you have to start small. You want to build up. You don't want to just go straight to my $1 million home. First of all, you can't afford it usually. And second of all, if you can, then, you know, great. But do you really want to go buy your dream home? You don't even know what your dream home is yet. You don't know how you live. You know, if you're young starting out, you don't know what's going to make you happy in your home.
Right, exactly. Okay,
So.
Great. Okay, so how do you handle it when people are buying a house together and they want different things?
So when I started out, I had a couple, and he liked vintage, and he liked contemporary, and so that was not a lot of fun. So as I get
exterior,
it was really hard. In fact, we ended up they ended up buying something in a older building, but it was done contemporary. So they ended up. I did find them something. It wasn't easy. But now, as I've been in the business longer, I now just don't even want to get into. I don't want to get in the middle of like married couples or just dating. I don't want to get in the middle of that. So I just try to focus everybody on resale. So hey, that's great. You like that. That's going to be great for resale. That's not going to matter as much for resale. So just keep that in mind.
Well, it's interesting too, because a lot of what you're saying, one of the threads to me is like, this isn't necessarily going to be your forever house. You're not going to just move in and never make any changes. And old statistics I saw is the average length of time somebody lived in a house was like 7 years. That might have changed at this point, but even if it's 15 years, that's not forever. So that's something that I'm hearing you saying. It's like, look, compromise. Okay. Write it down. Next house, you get the
or or just think about when you go to sell this place that you like. So if you're perfect example is like, I don't need central air, but I know that if I have a house where I have a cross breeze and I just put in window air conditioning on each floor in the summertime. I understand that when I go to sell that, that's going to be an objection on that house.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Maybe, but
Depending on
that's
the
what
person,
I
yeah,
choose to
right.
do. So if somebody wants to buy it and put central air, that's all on them. But
Right.
for me, I don't need central air. So you have to kind of like remember that. So I will say to somebody who's going to buy a house without central air, most people want central air, just so you know. So
Right.
when you go to sell, that's one of your objections. I know you don't care about that, either do I, but I'm just giving you a heads up that that's something. So if you decide you want to put in central air, it'll improve your your value.
So speaking of resale value, like it seems like there's certain neighborhoods that have really taken off, and then there's certain that just kind of chug along. And I know this was a while back, but I was talking to a realtor, and they said this neighborhood will probably just more chug along, and then this other neighborhood, this is going to be take off. It's lower now, but it'll take off more. And it was because of some of the structural qualities of the neighborhood. What are your thoughts about that? Yeah.
Well, it's so weird because right now, everything's kind of status quo. I don't see any. The only maybe up and coming neighborhood might be like Woodlawn because of the Obama Library.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think that Inglewood's got some prospects because it's got great building stock, like beautiful old graystones, beautiful bungalows. They have some great stock in those areas. However, the city or businesses need to start investing in those areas in order for those areas to pop.
Right.
So if they don't invest in them, they're just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah.
I know Lori Lightfoot was doing some stuff on the south side.
Right.
So if they keep that up, that
Right.
will be helpful. But if we're not putting energy into these certain neighborhoods,
Right.
they're just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah, but I would say, like, say Logan Square. That's part
That's
of
a
what
great
happened
area.
there.
Yeah.
But that's part of what happened there.
Exactly.
Is that it's like it had all. Like
But it's
the
also on
building
the
stock was
north
good.
side. So
Yeah,
Chicago's
and
a very
good public-
complicated
public
city.
transportation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very big divide of north, south, and west.
Right.
Very different areas and, very few mingling amongst them. So north side will always be awesome.
Chugging along,
Yeah, everybody's going to always want to live mostly. Yeah, so that's how Logan Square. But it also, people couldn't, the neighborhoods kept improving as you went north, north. And then it was almost like, oh, wait, hey, look at this little area where there's great building stock. And it helped. I mean, it's a great area.
Well, it also seems like, say, West Loop, that area has really taken off.
But
in the last
also
20
remember
years.
the companies are going there.
Right.
Like Groupon and Google and all those companies landed there. So that really helped West Loop.
Well, it was kind of interesting too because it seemed like a lot of the building stock there was just like old factories or whatever, and so some of them got converted, some of them just got
That was the
torn
same
down.
as South Loop.
Okay, right.
Same
and
thing happened to South
yeah,
Loop,
and
yeah.
so it's like kind of easier, almost easier to work with than than other things that. Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me.
So I mean, usually what happens is in the neighborhoods they kind of start, depending on what kind of, if it's a residential or if they have a lot of vacant lots, is that people come in and start. So the area I live in is the Gap. So my mother bought there in 1980. It was the hood, and people started buying these homes up, these older homes, and renovating them and fixing them up.
Okay.
And then slowly people started moving in and filling in the vacant lots with homes. So then the area just kept improving, and it just keeps improving. So that's kind of what happened. So in the West Loop, when all of those companies came there, they already had a couple of nice newer buildings, and they had older buildings, and then they just kept building and building and building it up. Yeah.
Right.
And
Well,
it's just like one of the hottest neighborhoods.
Right,
now.
exactly.
It really
and
is,
it's one of the cool ones to me because it's not entrenched. No. Like it's not entrenched in their old like whatever
from the past.
From the past,
exactly.
So it's a lot more of a mix, which I think a lot of people actually want and are looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you seeing in different areas right now? So this is like specifically, so we talked about kind of structurally what happens in areas. What are there any specific areas that you feel like are taking off besides the Obama Library area?
Well, I don't even know that's taking off yet. That's what I tell people to. If somebody says to me where to speculate, I say consider Woodlawn.
Okay.
Because it still has room to grow. They have built new things there, so I'm always like, okay, consider that. And then I also mentioned Inglewood.
Okay.
And then Northside Rogers Park. Rogers
interesting.
Park is one of those areas that has been kind of stagnant for a few years, but I've noticed recently a lot more people are starting to get into Rogers Park. So I had a client, we went to an open house. I mean, it was a single family. It's about 50 people going to the single family. So Rogers Park, I think, is going to have some some more up and coming years coming
That's
up.
interesting. Yeah. Okay, so how do you feel like home ownership is going to change in the next, your future?
I don't know. The only thing I just kind of look at the way we live.
Yeah.
And since we're an older society, I just wonder if they're going to have more multi-generational homes. So I'm just wondering if things like 2 flats and 3 flats are going to start coming back into
Yeah.
Because then you can put your parents downstairs and you can live upstairs and then you can take care of them. Or maybe it's your kids who are, bouncing back to school.
Right.
Throw them into their own apartment downstairs.
Well, I have one friend who just bought a 3-flat with her kids, which was interesting, and it was a new construction too. Which was interesting.
Great.
New
That's
construction
good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been really thinking that should be something that we should be all thinking about.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so
Renata.
Renate Martin. Renate Martin.
There you
Thank you
go.
so much for talking with me today. If people want to find out more about you, how should they go about that?
Well, I work at Baird & Warner Gold Coast, and my email is Renata, RENATE @renatamartin.com, and you can also Google me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Easy to find. Great. Thanks. My name's Bridget Sullivan Mermel. My YouTube channel is Friends Talk Financial Planning. Check out this show's website at chicagomoneyshow.com and sign up for our newsletter so that you can get a heads up on before upcoming shows. If you've got questions on this episode or for future episodes, please email us at ask@chicagomoneyshow.com. Thanks for watching.